Giants fans as well, so you know where that reference was born. I also just think that we go back to 2021 when the 49ers turned it around from 3-5. There was a lot of torture. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy tonight as the 49ers beat the Dallas Cowboys 30-24. And this was a game that it looked like it was going to be a blowout for a while. And then the 49ers suddenly, after shutting Dallas down for 4 straight possessions, Dallas didn't have a single first down for 4 straight possessions that straddled the first and the second halves. The 49ers just lapsed. 4-man rushes, Dak Prescott was throwing to CeeDee Lamb, who was wide open, and all of a sudden, the 49ers were only up 6. And all of a sudden, they had to punt the ball away to the Dallas Cowboys. And then when push came to shove, when they absolutely had to have it, the 49ers defense put the clamp down on Dallas. They didn't give up a single yard on that last drive. And that was even with some help to the Cowboys from the 49ers. Fred Warner obviously inadvertently broke up the interception to Deommodore Lenoir. Lenoir would have picked it off, but Fred Warner knocked the ball away instead. But, I mean, that was just a showcase of how good the 49ers defense was on that last possession, but they definitely made this hairier than it had to be. But we could start with how good Brock Purdy was today, because here's the thing. He was off a little bit in the first half. He missed on a couple of those crossers. That 4th down to Deebo Samuel, threw it a little bit behind him. Yeah, Deebo should have caught the ball. I get it, but normally we don't see Brock Purdy miss like that on those short to intermediate throws. He's got really, really good accuracy. He missed that one, and I think before the half on the big yak one for George Kittle, when Kittle cut inside, I think Purdy, I'm going to ask him in the locker room right now, I think he might have been trying to lead him, but he missed there too. And then there was one to Guerendo that he missed. So Purdy was not perfect in the first half by no stretch. But the 49ers went into halftime despite some of these imperfections, some of these inaccuracies, having gained 7.5 yards per play. For perspective, the NFL lead, the top team in the NFL, is averaging 7.2 yards per play. So the 49ers had only 6 points at halftime, but 7.5 yards per play. What that told us is that they were leaving a whole lot of opportunities out on the table. So they were explosive, but they weren't capitalizing. Well, in the second half, they capitalized. In the second half, they put on a tour de force there. I think it was 3 straight drives that ended with touchdowns. I'm going to have to go back and check the box score to be sure. But Brock Purdy's rating well above 110 in this game. I mean, the guy's hitting deep out patterns. The guy's hitting deep balls. There was one that was called back, speaking of opportunities missed in the first half. Eric Saubert on the holding to Deebo Samuel. But Purdy is running for a lot of this game. He was the 49ers' second leading rusher, or he was the leading rusher for a lot of the game, but he was the second leading rusher by the time it was all said and done. Isaac Guerendo played as fast as we've seen him play. He had to step in for Jordan Mason, who injured his shoulder. And let's talk a little bit about Guerendo and how good of a fit he is for this offense. There have been only a handful of players over the course of the past several decades that have been able to run a 4.3 40 and have weighed over 220 pounds. Saquon Barkley is one of them, and his relative athletic score was actually really only close to being rivaled over the last 10 years coming out of college by Isaac Guerendo's. The difference, of course, is that Saquon Barkley was a full-time guy at Penn State, so he was a star. He was going to be a high draft pick no matter what. Isaac Guerendo didn't start in college. Isaac Guerendo was a wide receiver to start college and then moved to running back, then got hurt, never quite caught on at either Wisconsin or Louisville. Those are the 2 schools that he went to. So he was a diamond in the rough. But the 49ers saw the athletic profile and said, this guy can fit perfectly not only with the outside zone, but also with what San Francisco likes to run out of the backfield with the receiving game. All week I had emphasized that the 49ers needed to start throwing shorter. They're putting way too much pressure on Brock Purdy and way too much pressure on their protections, especially given how defenses were playing them with aggressive pressures, to not reintegrate the short game. It's something that had been missing. Entering this game, the 49ers had thrown only 11 screen passes all year, the lowest in the NFL. 11 screen passes, 45 screen pass yards. Both of those figures, the lowest in the league. So and we looked at how the blitzes and the pressure from Kansas City was derailing the 49ers offense. Purdy didn't have enough quick answers. Well, today, 4 screen passes to Deebo Samuel alone. Isaac Guerendo, I think, something about him, Brock Purdy trusted him to throw the ball out of the backfield a lot more than Jordan Mason. Probably because Guerendo used to be a receiver, and the way that he moves his body, the way that he syncs with the quarterback, much more favorable for Brock Purdy. Because a lot of times you're making a hot read, and you're throwing on instinct, you're throwing on feel, and you've got to be comfortable as the QB. Speaking of comfort throwing as a quarterback, how about Ricky Pearsall and Brock Purdy today? Very first throw of the game was to Ricky Pearsall. Then there was a 3rd down deep out where Brock Purdy threw the ball before Ricky Pearsall even turned around and looked for it. That shows you that there is real chemistry between these two, like legitimately real chemistry between Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall developed very quickly. And then what a special moment for Pearsall on the sweep. They gave him the jet sweep at the end of the game. It was a 39-yard gain. Didn't ice the game for the 49ers. They still had to sweat a little bit after that, but definitely a special moment for Ricky Pearsall down the stretch. George Kittle, by the way, today surpassed Dwight Clark for number 3 on the 49ers all-time receiving yards list. So number 1 is Jerry Rice with 19,249 yards. It's insane. Over 19,000 yards with one team. Number 2, Terrell Owens, 8,572 yards. And now number 3, George Kittle, 6,777 yards. Clark is 4th, 6,750. But 49ers offense got it done against the Dallas defense that struggled, didn't have Micah Parsons. 49ers ran for over 200 yards. Purdy ran for over 50. Purdy was dicing him up in the second half. How about that play? I mean, I find it hilarious, too. We heard all this idiotic stuff about Purdy and the lack of audibles from people who don't know what they're talking about this past week. Well, Brock Purdy checked into runs today at the line of scrimmage, and then on the big gainer to George Kittle that set up that touchdown at the start of the second half, Brock Purdy checked from run to pass. So, yes, Brock Purdy has control over multiple plays at the line of scrimmage. It's just not an audible by the name that people like to refer to it as because they play too many video games. But Brock Purdy in full command today. Then there was another play where he audibled after the snap, and I'll explain. The screen was taken away, I believe, to Deebo Samuel. Would have been a pick 6 if Brock Purdy had forced a little screen pass. They got the Cowboys defense suckered in because they finally started running the short game. So Brock Purdy pumped and then tucked it and ran himself for a first down. Stuff that an elite quarterback does. Brock Purdy at the very, very top of his game tonight down the stretch. Even though he's a little bit off in the first half, he came roaring back in the second. Quarterback rating 114. This kind of performance, I'm going to write about it tonight on the San Francisco Standard, is going to vault Purdy back up. He was already in the top 5, but he was number 1 last year, and if he puts together more of these performances, he's going to be number 1 moving forward. Nick Bosa, really big game for the 49ers today. Sam Okawanu, nice and big game. Deommodore Lenoir covering CeeDee Lamb. That was huge. That was my matchup of the game. Listen, the 4 drives over the middle of the game that the 49ers defense delivered on, that set what the 49ers needed. That set the table for victory. Sorensen didn't look good at the start. Nick Sorensen, the defensive coordinator, thought Dallas was playing timid offense, and Sorensen let them pick up 3rd and 10s twice with a screen pass and with a run to Kabonte Turpin. To me, that's inexcusable when Dallas ran a give-up run on the first 3rd down. You knew that they were not going to be bold early on, and the 49ers still gave up 3rd downs without even a drop-back pass attack. And that led to Dallas's first touchdown. But then Sorensen made the adjustments. And typically I thought when the 49ers brought 5 today, I'm going to watch the tape to really verify this, but when they brought 5, they did a lot better than when they brought only 4, when there was some creativity and aggressiveness from Nick Sorensen. When Dallas made its run toward the end of the game, that's when the 49ers were only bringing 4. They brought 5 on the 3rd and 4th downs to seal it, to seal the torture that was this game for the 49ers. And hey, I mentioned in the preview that special teams was going to be huge. Dallas number 1 in special teams, 49ers enter number 31. 49ers actually won the special teams battle in this football game. So it wasn't a complete 100% dominant performance for the 49ers, but it was a team win where every single phase of the game contributed, and that's exactly what they needed heading into this bye week. They've vaulted from last in the division to 2nd in the division. Arizona holds the tiebreaker, but they're now ahead of the Rams, and they're ahead of the Seahawks again, and Christian McCaffrey's coming back in the next game. One of the 49ers' biggest flaws that continues to haunt them is the inability to pick up 1 yard with a standard run, even though they ran for over 200 in the game. I think that's something that Christian McCaffrey might be able to fix. That kept the door open for Dallas, that inability today. So, but Christian McCaffrey should be back against the Buccaneers, and maybe, just maybe, the 49ers will have a couple additions via the trade market. I'll keep you updated. I'm headed to the locker room. 49ers 30, Dallas Cowboys 24. Massive win for San Francisco. They're 4-4 heading into the bye. They turn it around every season, it seems, and this might have been it for the 49ers. I talked about it like a Rams-like performance from 2021 and 2022. Well, we'll see how that holds up as the season progresses. All right, talk to you guys soon.